New Japan was on the road this week. They had a couple of shows, some weather-addled, but nevertheless, they were able to get them done. But all the news was overshadowed with the revelation that Evil will indeed be leaving New Japan Pro Wrestling. They made the formal announcement this week. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to look ahead to a couple of Korakuen Hall shows this coming weekend. All of it's in the service to set up New Beginning in Osaka. So there's a few things to go over right here, including some front office stuff that may or may not be significant. We're going to look at it from both directions. So with Jeremy Finestone, I'm Steven Conway. This is Speaking of Strong Style. Welcome, everyone, to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. Got a little of all of them this week. And Jeremy, I was looking at this, and we talked about it here on the show last week, and it was on the minds of a lot of New Japan fans. We're going to cover Evil's departure in a little while, and although it was something that a lot of people saw coming, and it was reported, there were some house shows. But other than that, Evil departing is a big deal. He's a faction leader, not a former one, and has been a key cog in this machine for quite a while. So plenty to go over there, but no shows to watch. Nothing was on NJPW World this week. So we were kind of passive observers for a lot of this. And I ended up catching up on other things. TJPW has his tag team tournament going. I watched Stardom. I watched Marigold. I watched some Noah. So I've been catching up on other things around Japan. And, of course, as usual, my Lucha Libre and things. So that's how I spent the week while scanning for other news and other Lion Mark messages.
Looking for anything interesting to talk about with New Japan this week.
And
scouring the internet.
They gave it to us. And but how did you spend your week? How have you been? What's going on with you?
Well, I'm doing okay, Steven. In my life, from let's say like Thanksgiving to around the 27th to 29th of January, it's just chaos for me because it's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas, it's family, it's holidays, it's New Year's, it's my birthday, and we're ending it with the Queen, her birthday at the end of all of this, and that has to end with the finale, and that one's on me, and I just finished all of that. So, like, the craziness of 2 months of my life is now behind me, and I'm coming down from that level of, like, okay, hold on to your hats. I gotta deliver on all these things in my life. So I really wanted to thank New Japan for having no shows this week, and it allowed me to really focus and lock down on making sure my wife's birthday, which did include a surprise party, went off without a hitch.
Organizing a surprise party is not surprisingly stressful. That's not easy to pull off.
It is absolutely a gesture of love and affection from one person to another to put together a surprise party. But everything worked out. We all met up for some soul food over the last couple of days. People were celebrated, cupcakes were eaten, people were happy, birthdays were celebrated, and magically, instead of getting older, it appears that weird math, my wife just keeps getting younger. So,
well, that's good. She tells her secrets. But we had an ice storm here over this past week, and last time we had an ice storm, it traumatized the whole state because the electrical grid failed spectacularly on a huge scale, and a lot of people were without power for we in particular at our old house were out of power for days at a time when it was below freezing temperatures out. And then we were without water for almost a week. So it was a real challenge in that time. It sort of traumatized everybody and made everybody very, very nervous about this storm. Thankfully, this year, much less of a problem. It seems that some of the grid issues were fixed. And the best part about it was that the cold temperatures, which last time came through and stayed below freezing for days at a time, didn't do that. It got cold and we got ice because it was sleet, and then it got below freezing down into the teens and all that stuff with wind chill and all. But the good news was in the days that followed, the temperature crept back up above freezing, so we didn't have to have that sit on top of us for a week like we did last time. And of course, down here in Texas, just not prepared to handle snow like they are up north with plows and salt and sand and all the things they do to help make life passable. Didn't have that. Don't normally need it, right? And so this time things went a lot better, thankfully. But it also kept everybody stuck in the house. The schools were closed Monday and Tuesday in our area. Really couldn't leave the house much on Sunday because everything was still ice at that point. So it was just kind of being cooped up a little bit. But I felt like we were a little bit better prepared for it this time, and it worked out a lot better.
Lessons were learned.
Yeah.
You had what you needed this time, knowing you were going to go through what? Were you homebound for like 5 days?
About 3. About 3 from Saturday and Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. There wasn't much going on. We were pretty much in, but Tuesday a lot closer to normal, and then it's been fine since. So still hanging in there with that. But
I think on Sunday morning I could see my the frost when I breathed. It was just really that cold. But that was it really for me over here in California. So
not too bad.
Yeah.
All right. Our dog loved it though. We have a winter dog. He's a Great Pyrenees, and he's very floofy, and he absolutely loved the cold weather. He loves the cold, loves the snow, all that stuff. So he didn't want to come back in once he went out.
I have one dog that loves warmth and pillows. So when that frost was on the breath, they noped out and went right back inside for the majority of the day.
All right. Well, cool. So I hope everybody's doing well, and I know that there's been a lot going on out there. So I hope everybody is either handling the weather well or the news well, whatever your beliefs. It's been a difficult week out here. So, good luck to everybody. I just best wishes to everybody going on about their lives. Strange days. Anyway, Brad is here. Nick is here. Glad to see you guys. Glad you're with us here.
Hello.
And Nick has said the snow here in Kansas City has melted just enough to become ice this weekend when temperatures drop into the single digits. Son of a gun. That's a rough break. Cool. That's a rough break. Brad is here. He says, "Hey, fellas, now when he uses his finisher, everything is evil. It won't be figurative anymore." So Evil has left New Japan. We might as well just dive right into that. We got the official Lion Mark announcement. No farewell match. He's just gone. Immediately, Jeremy, out of character, like within a day of that announcement coming out, there's a photograph on Jado's social media of the two of them hanging out and smiling together, saying, "I haven't had dinner with him in a very long time, and we wish him the best in this next chapter of his life." And there was Watanabe with Jado outside of a restaurant right there, just kind of with a little smile together. So Evil is no more in New Japan Pro Wrestling. We again had wind of it before, but now that it has happened, it does feel like there's a void. It's interesting the way it hit me this week. I have always said that I dislike House of Torture because it takes so many tools out of these guys' toolkits. You're forced to do that House of Torture stuff with the ref bumps and the cheating and the way. And I mentioned that New Japan's not that good at it. It frustrates me because they take really good wrestlers and make them work that way. And we saw hints of Watanabe when he was freed of that, when he had the G1 final match. There have been other times back when he was a hell of a good wrestler with LIJ and things. So it made me think back to all those times. And the one that cracked me up, Jeremy, the one that I remembered a time when Evil was the babyface in a feud with Zack Sabre Jr. when Zack was in Suzuki-gun. And the story was that Evil couldn't beat Zack. Just whatever happened, Zack would get the jump on him, would get the drop on him, get one of those roll-ups with the bridges out of nowhere and beat him. Or he'd tap him out, or it would be something where he would get himself caught in a submission hold and have to give up. And there was a pretty big match. I wish I could remember off the top of my head which major show it was on, but it was a Dontaku or a King of Pro Wrestling or a Sakura Genesis type of show. And I remember being heavily invested in hoping Evil finally beats this guy, which seems kind of funny now because we've spent all these years annoyed by Evil's House of Torture antics. And it just made me think that, man, when he and Sonata were healthy in LIJ, hell of a good tag team. Mm-hmm. That feud with Zack worked, and the matches were really, really good. The G1 final reminded me how good of a worker he is. And despite me belly aching about him and the way he's been portrayed for 5 years, I always knew he was a good wrestler and said it on this show that I thought he was a very good worker. It seems very strange that he has been as New Japanish as anybody has been. Maybe not Tanahashi, but you know what I'm talking about. He was very of
loyal.
New Japan.
He's a company guy.
Yeah, and it's strange to think that he's going to be somewhere else. We saw the WWE has trademarked the name Sinister.
And that was an attempt for Hikuleo. That has nothing to do with Sinister.
Oh, really? But, that's not to do with Watanabe? Okay.
Yeah, it ended up being debunked and being something that was for Hikuleo at one point.
I read that to my girlfriend. She just said, so someone bought Paul Thesaurus.
Yeah, of all the synonymistic names that you can come up with, Sinister.
Okay,
I am a fan of the villain Mr. Sinister from the X-Men comic book. So anytime somebody wants to invoke the Sinister moniker.
Yeah, who was it? Was it Mitchell that was the Sinister Minister for a while in pro wrestling? Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Definitely a little bit of Lucifer action going on when he was doing that thing. Now listen, Evil was never a superstar, but he was competent and he was able to teach a lot of people while he was there. He is due a lot of credit in a lot of ways, for keeping that upper mid-card afloat when there weren't any real heels. There wasn't anything to sink your teeth into. Whether you hated House of Torture or not, he kept the promotion going because he was a true heel. Legitimately, there was nothing about him that you wanted to cheer, that you wanted to like. You hated him. You hated everything that he represented when you were there at the show. But now as, the layers are peeled and you're finding out just how important this guy was. He was the guy behind training Aaron Wolf. He was training all these young lions and doing all these things when they're on the tours. He was one of those elder statesmen that were healthy, that could show the way of how you could wrestle sustainably long-term without killing yourself. Because God knows, you're in New Japan, there's a lot of trainers and there's a lot of people that do not evoke the safety aspect of the strong style. And he's come out of it relatively in one piece. You got guys like Okada, you got guys like him that don't wrestle that completely brutal style all the time, but they're doing the shows every night. And he could, he could do that style. You've seen him do the G1 final where you saw that he was perfectly capable of doing all the things that he needed to do, but his role dictated he was a certain way, and he never deviated from any of that. And for that, I give him credit. A company guy. It wasn't his vision. He's doing the House of Torture thing, and he is the guy that they circled and said, no matter what Gaijin, foreigner is a heel, you're always going to be this top heel guy that we have. And he had already won the IWGP. Title. He is all part of the lineage. He checked off all the boxes. Go get your bag and go see your queen, buddy. I wish you well. Inevitably, I wish that we would have had that babyface run, where the redemption arc, where he sees the light, and we kind of gone that way. I think there would have been something to it. But I also, the timing of everything, you didn't have any ready-made heels at that top level during this whole Tanahashi retirement, but that would have been a perfect time to do that. But it was one or the other. Who else would you have put in that position to be the sustainable top heel while, Evil somehow renounces evil, before he gets out of it? It's all just circumstantial. You were never, this is the cost of the pro wrestling business. Sometimes you don't get to put a bow on things.
Yeah. And my issues with the House of Torture have always been booking related, not talent related, with the exception of Yujiro, who I just don't think is good. But when I look at Evil's run there, my issues are always just the way he's portrayed, not his effort nor his talent. I find it very frustrating that nobody in House of Torture seems to have any character development at all in the course of their run there. It's just cartoon villainry. And I feel like that hindered Evil quite a bit in the 5 years, 6 years almost. It's coming up on 6 years since he really did that switch, isn't it? It was like 22. It was during the pandemic that he won the title.
2021,
maybe 2021, but we're talking 5 years here, like a good 5 years. He's exactly the same as when he switched, and that's not his fault. He's doing what the company is telling him to do. None of these guys seem to progress or evolve at all. And that was always my issue with that. And then, of course, then you just stop wrestling much in the House of Torture gimmick. You just don't. We're seeing that with Narita, who's backslid severely since he's joined House of Torture. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Ren now. Is he going to be the guy that steps up? Is there going to be somebody else? There's not much House of Torture presence in Osaka. They aren't booked for this thing, except for Narita challenging Aaron Wolf for that never openweight title. I don't expect Wolf to be beaten that soon. I think they're crazy if they do it. That's usually the darkest before the dawn part of a faction storyline. That would put House of Torture about as low as they've been, right? They're out of the trios title picture. They don't have much going on except Doki, who, that's one. But when it comes to that, is Narita going to be the guy, or is there going to be some turmoil? Or are they going to bring in somebody else? But I suspect that House of Torture will kind of leave New Beginning and then go through Fantastica Mania, which doesn't really have to do with it, as kind of a non-entity in New Japan, just waiting for something to spring up. It could be somebody turning, it could be somebody coming in, and it could be Narita. They could just decide it's going to be Ren, but it's a void. And you mentioned how he was the perfect person for Wolf, and I think you're exactly right. What they needed from Aaron Wolf was 100% unanimity in terms of support. Anybody else might have had fans in their corner, but everybody wanted Aaron Wolf to beat Evil.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that, and especially the casual fan base, you have to have 100% fans behind this guy. And we had talked like who would be a good opponent for him. Well, maybe Zach could have carried him to something special,
but he would have split the crowd.
Can't have that. Can't have that with Wolf. You need him to. It's no mistake that another House of Torture guy is his first opponent for that title, right? I mean, they want to build that 100%. We're with Aaron momentum, and that's going to be a big deal for them. So
what's really funny about that Evil and Aaron Wolf match?
Yeah,
it was a total WWE WrestleMania match.
Yeah, it really was.
And so the fact that he's going to WWE and people were like, I don't know, can he adopt to the WWE style? Go watch the Aaron Wolf match.
He's been wrestling WWE style matches for 5 years. That's what we've been complaining about. That's what we've been complaining about.
Yeah, no worries, buddy. We'll sign you. We just saw that Aaron Wolf match. You're the good.
Yeah. And so here, Brett,
let's talk about Ren Narita. Yeah. Okay. Tokyo Sports, he does an interview a couple of days ago since he's taken over House of Torture. He, to me, does not appear to have the cachet to be the leader. In any way, shape, or form. When people are wondering, hey, is Doki going to be the leader of House of Torture and not Ren Narita? They're not going to put a junior in charge of the faction. So, looking at it like that, Ren Narita seems a bit weak. And we talked about how he hasn't stepped up, and one of the conversations that I was orbiting around with some of the insiders was, interestingly, when he was training with Shibata more broke him than made him, and so he's not the guy that he was when he started out in this business, and potentially he needs to learn to love it again if he's going to be at that top level. Because if you hear that explanation and you see all those matches that he has, like, you can almost see it. Like, he's doing this as a job, not as a passion. And it kind of explains it away. And this is his opportunity to claim it. You know what I mean? Like, he could prove us all wrong, and he can really own this and turn House of Torture into something different, something for 2026 that matches the rest of the product. Because that's the issue with it right now. With the product that they're trying to develop, with this new strong style, the emphasis on the young talent, the cowardly, almost heelish ways doesn't really fit in with that vision. So they have to reassess that. The only other thing is if it's not Ren, it's going to be a 3 or 4 month story until we get to Dominion, where we have a new leader of that faction challenging Yoda Tsuji. Because right now, Yoda Tsuji needs challengers. He's going to have Jake Lee, at one point. But then after that, it's going to be the New Japan Cup winner. And then after that is going to be, somebody before we get to Dominion. And if he's still the champion, they got to have a big match. Yeah. And a big match is one of the 3 guys like Yuya or Shota, and it could be Ren. You know what I mean? But like those are the matches that need to happen at Dominion. Like not the him versus Hiroki Goto or him versus Shingo. Like as much as I love those matches, you need to be looking forward to the future and building main events with those younger talent.
And we'll see if they do that. I'm not convinced there is a youth movement yet. They have to prove it to me. I've been hearing this talk from New Japan for too long to believe it until I actually see it. Because, man, I heard a lot of yammering about how Yuya Uemura is the next thing, and they did producing all these videos, and then they just beat him. And Shota Umino beat him. Tsuji did win. Yeah, Tsuji did win. Ren Narita has vanished into House of Torture, and seemingly is wrestling ability along with it just doesn't anymore. I know he can. He just doesn't. That was my issue with Evil too.
The next 6 months are going to be important to this, Steven. This is not a 1 month, like we've turned it around. Like there are other podcasts that are like, we're back, baby. We've restored the feeling. And I'm like, I feel it.
We are not.
But we need sustainability. We need to like create month after month of this feeling, not we've watched Wrestle Kingdom. We saw a couple of really great shows. What are we following up with? Granted, the New Beginning card, I am really excited for, but the card has to play out. And then we have to play off of that momentum. And that's where I'm at right now, is that I am cautiously optimistic. I think we're heading in the right direction, but we have to get through the people leaving. We have to figure out exactly what this product is going to look like going forward. And we're all operating on our best hopes and our worst fears on it, but the product just has to show us what it is.
Let's take a look at some of these comments right here. I think that's a fair point. As far as Evil and WWE goes, we're going to get your comments in just a second. One thing I wanted to say about that, Evil and WWE, with the exception of the long form talking that you have to do in WWE, where I miss the days where you just walked over to the announcer's desk and did like a 2-minute thing after your match in the studio. But now you have to do these 20-minute long involved scripts with 5 people interrupting you and all this stuff. That's going to be where he might struggle a little bit. Maybe a mouthpiece is needed right there, but you're right. He works a WWE style now. He's going to be okay there.
How is he going to fit in there? I don't know, guys. He's probably just going to pivot.
Yeah, and so that's the only part of it I'm nervous about, is that the long form talking thing. But they found a way for Julia to do fairly well with it. EO certainly not a great English speaker, and EO's not having any issues getting over, so it can certainly be done. Let's see some comments here though. Brad mentioned the amount of celebrating for people who watch NJPW with the announcement was wild. So many who are happy he's no longer in New Japan and that they no longer have to deal with him and House of Torture. Well, I don't think those people are rid of House of Torture. Just think the Evil. And then Nick just says, I think the people who are excited about Evil being gone haven't thought through what House of Torture will actually be like without him. Yeah, that's one of the best workers in the group that's no longer there. And then Brad mentions Dave was down on the signing. I would have thought he would have gotten Evil and how good he is, but he kind of blasted Evil this week. It's I didn't hear what Dave said about him, but
he called him a good worker, but nothing spectacular.
He's not the number one guy. It's not like they've signed. Well, I mean, it's not like Okada. It's not like AEW.
It's not like they got Nakamura. This whole
Nakamura was a bigger
Nakamura. He's gonna light it up in WWE. But frankly speaking, it's almost exactly the same signing. It's like one of the top heels at the time is coming over. And
Nakamura's a better worker, but more charismatic and just all around more popular than Evil was at the time.
Yeah. Evil might be a better worker now, but I think with Triple H in charge, I think there's a real opportunity for him to thrive in a way that Nakamura kind of flailed at the time. And I think that was more due to the booking and the belief that the Japanese talent couldn't carry the product.
Well, here's the thing. Nakamura ebbs and flows, but he's been there for a long, long time. Kevin Owens has ebbed and flowed over his time too. And yeah, exactly. But keep in mind, Nakamura, challenged for the world title at WrestleMania, won a Royal Rumble. It's not like he's gone over there and just failed, and he's been the NXT champion thing. And then the match with AJ.
You haven't really watched his career much, have you, though, right? Like, in the last 5 years?
He is working a very different style than he worked in New Japan because he doesn't have to do all that stuff.
That's exactly right. He likes to surf, and he'd really enjoy getting that paycheck. But I'll tell you, Steven, the first time I saw Nakamura do anything really, frankly, worth a damn in WWE was that Saturday night's main event with AJ Styles that he had last week, where it was basically his version of like, all right, fuckers, you want to see a Tokyo Dome match? Like, those two went out there, and they ripped it up. And that was like, that was the Nakamura I haven't seen in years.
I was going to say, I think that's a little rough to say that that's the only good thing he's done. That he was a good NXT champion, a very good NXT champion. His first year and a half or so in WWE was pushed pretty hard.
10 years ago.
I understand, but it's still in there.
And what I'm saying, in the last 5 years, he hasn't really contributed much to the product. This is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I haven't used him much. So, let's see. Oh, Jeremy's asking, would I ever do a history of New Japan book? I would love to, but they'd have to pay me. I can't take that much time away from work unpaid to actually do it well. But if someone were to pay me, you're damn right I would. I think
the labor instead of the love part really takes precedence on that one.
Yeah, I kind of have to pay for this house. This house needs paying for. But I would love to, because I actually think there is a void there as far as just a good solid history of New Japan Pro Wrestling from a narrative standpoint. Chris Charlton's Lion's Pride book is terrific at giving you an outline of the most important people and some of the most important events and some of the concepts that make New Japan what it is. But I think there's more meat on the bone as to, what happened where with whom and that type of thing going forward, especially as the eras have turned from the Inoki to, the dark days of the aughts through the resurgence and things. I'd love to. I would absolutely love to. And then Jeremy also wanted to ask, should they go away from factions for a while? I don't think we're going to see that. I think that's too ingrained into New Japan's culture these days, especially with the people in charge of it right now. And, Tanahashi came up in an era of factions. Factions have been a strong part, pardon the pun, of New Japan going back to the 80s. Really, you didn't see formal factions as much in the 70s, early 80s. It was more like the New Japan UWF feuds, Jeremy, that really saw people choose up sides. They were allies. Certainly people were allied with one another, yes. And now Choshu, Riki Choshu was the faction that was before UWF. So that I would say, like, the rise of Riki Choshu as that anti-establishment guy, and I've got my group of guys who have my back and I've got theirs. And I'm not necessarily a heel, but I'm not doing everything Antonio Inoki says. I'm not doing everything. Fujinami's a goody two shoes a little bit, that kind of, I'm going to grow my hair long and be a little more, a little rebellious. When that caught fire, then they started really seeing the idea of, let's put these guys together and give them a theme. And I'm not saying there wasn't any of that before Choshu, but I think the Choshu's army and that culture clash between the very traditional, button down, almost baby faces of earnest baby faces of Antonio Inoki and Fujinami versus more rebellious style, I think kind of change the philosophy a little bit. And like, if we can give these guys personality and a theme, it kind of hits. So that's been an awfully long time. That's 40 years of New Japan culture, and I doubt they're going to be breaking
part
away
of their
from
match building and
plus,
world building,
Well, and more than that, which gets into our next thing, it's part of their marketing. those logos and things. I mean, they made a lot of money with the LIJ stuff. They make a lot of money with TMDK. There's one of their towels right over my shoulder here. The
merchandising wise, yeah. I'm sorry. It made me realize that Stardom put out wrap hoodies this past weekend, and they're expensive. And I saw them like, holy shit! If they did those for New Japan, like they did a wrap hoodie for Yota Tsuji or the Knockout Brothers or Shingo or any one of them, they would be fire and they would sell so quickly. I hope they do those same things when you talk about them and doing those like factions. When you do that, like those giant, all the shirts, all the hoodies, you know, like slapping that logo on top of whatever, you know, individual wrestler, they're so viable. Like it really brings the whole promotion together when you have like 4 or 5 icons that you can kind of throw in there and just really say, hey, this is what makes New Japan.
Yeah. And, you know, it does work for the way that they tour also. I mean, the idea of these preview tags where it's the guy in the main match and his buddies, his allies, his training partners, his running buddies against the other guys. It works in a lot of ways there. USVA guy is with us. Hey, Esteban. And it says, Western fandom is going to receive a big gut check this year, he thinks. Those that refuse to understand the intricacies of the company, its history, and Japanese culture are going to be looked at poorly. So it helps to know this stuff, folks. I will help with the history lessons and keep us going with this stuff because if he's right, and if they are going, you know, moving toward a youth movement or something more that is in line with the history and the traditions of Japanese wrestling, I'm all for it. I mean, one of the reasons I like it is that it is an alternative to what's going on here. Even when WWE and AEW are good, I still like to have an alternative. You know, it's not, I don't move away from New Japan when one of the companies here is on fire. I love that there are different styles of this stuff. So I don't want to see Japanese countries westernized. I like the Japanese companies acting like Japanese companies, Lucha Libre acting like Lucha. And I like when it's good. I like when WWE and AEW are doing that American style.
Does that mean that like New Japan is going to go a bit more isolationist this year?
I doubt that, just because they seem to be working with a lot of people in terms of the tournaments and all that, and I think that's been healthy for them.
But there's like top level stuff where they're not going to do IWGP title shots outside of New Japan shows, and
they're going to do global
eventing and really like setting some rules and guidelines. So say like Forbidden Door, you're not going to have Yota Tsuji defending the title on that card because there's no way that Tony Khan is going to have that title close to show.
Maybe the global title in that case. That's
what I'm saying. It's like there's a sense of like a barrier there where like AEW, if you're watching AEW only or CMLL, you're not going to get the full like New Japan product when it comes there because of the rules that New Japan is imposing about its own promotion.
Well, and let's take that all with a grain of salt. That's a guy talking, and boy, they've done a lot of talking about what's going to happen going forward and then not done it. There's been a ton of that. Right? Look at what the TV title is compared to what it was going to be when they established it. Look at what
they also brought back the V4 when they said many times that they were going to and didn't, and now that they did. So there's also indications that they are willing to put their money where their mouth is at this time that they haven't done in the past. That makes me give them a little bit more leeway when they say they're going to do these things.
We'll see. Basically, we're down to sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. So, you know, the onus is on them after this. Brad mentioned Stardom does the same as wrap T-shirts. I wish they weren't so expensive. Yeah, those are
what I'm talking about. I saw them. I got the Tokon Shop email and I looked at these shirts, like the wrap style shirt. You remember when like Cody did like the wrap shirt with him holding like a cigar, and it reminded you of like the Biggie like or the Tupac shirt where they're just like completely out insane, like helicopters and guns and women and cash. They're all Stardom shirts like that, and I was like, man, that stuff's cool. Like, well, I'm a 45-year-old guy, and for whatever reason, I think that's cool.
Holy smokes, they're $170 US in the Tokon Shop.
That's what I'm saying. Like they're really they're really trying to hit the clientele on that one.
Saya, I love you, but boy, that's a lot. All right.
Just as much as a tracksuit for a sweatshirt.
That actually leads us to a pretty good segue, though.
Okay.
The marketing, right? Because
yes,
this past week it was mentioned that Taro Okada, he is one of the executives in the Stardom end of Bushiroad. He's also on a couple of committees that involve New Japan Pro Wrestling, as they've tried to bring those two companies a little bit closer together over time. They went through that whole difficult transition, shall we say, from Rossi Ogawa being fired to they had a guy in charge of the talent didn't really like. Taro Okada ended up with it. Since then, of course, 2025, one of the best years in Stardom history, probably is the best year in Stardom history.
Mm-hmm.
Like two crowds over 6,000, 7,500 in Yokohama. And frankly, it's the Tokyo Sports MVP. They have had the run of their lives on that one, on their 15th anniversary. It was announced that Taro Okada will be taking a role in New Japan also. His role has kind of been expanded. Not booking, not creative. Of course, keep in mind, they wouldn't announce if it was. That's not how they do things. But his role is more in the realm of merchandising and marketing, sponsorships, stuff that he's done very, very well on the Stardom side. And now he's going to be doing it on the New Japan side as well, apparently. As of now, as of sitting here right now, the day that we're doing this podcast, because things change constantly, that's about it. That's about it. That's about what he's taking over. Some Stardom fans are a little skittish about this one because they like what he's doing day to day for the most part. There have been some criticisms of the Stardom booking of the last year that it doesn't go deep enough after Kamatani, but right now I think that it's pretty good. I think that there are multiple things going on within Stardom that are interesting. They're worried that he's going to be taken away from Stardom and put in charge of New Japan because New Japan had a very bad 2025. I urge everyone to take some deep breaths on that. I don't think that's what this means right now. Again, I mentioned January 29th, 2026. Bushiroad wants Tanahashi to succeed. I'm very, very confident of that. He is a good spokesperson. He's good at PR, and he's exactly the kind of guy they would like to have front and center at these press conferences, at all these non-wrestling show events. He's exactly the kind of guy you want out there doing that. He is good PR. So I think they're going to do everything they can to help him out. I think Okada working a little bit more, but I do think they also see that Stardom is thriving like it hasn't before. Better than it did with Rossi even. And I'm not sure a lot of people thought that was going to be possible. So it makes sense for Bushiroad to say, hey, we got one side that's absolutely thriving and is having the year of its existence. Another side that is having a very rough time right now. Let's take the guy that is a big part of that success and hopefully some of that rubs off on the other company. They're not talking about, at this time, replacing Tanahashi or having him take over Tanahashi's role or Geto's role for that record or anything in creative that we know of. But it does make sense, Jeremy, that they would take a guy who's been so successful on that end and bring him over. If he's good at sponsorships, that always helps pay for things, including foreign talent, keep in mind, or other Japanese talent for that matter. Sponsorships help pay for a lot of that stuff. Marketing helps pay for a lot of that stuff. This is a company that in a culture, a wrestling culture, that does not have monster television contracts. They're not getting hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars from streaming services and networks. They have TV. They get some. But it's ticket sales, it's merchandise sales, and that's the main driver of all this. So if he's able to come over and increase any of those things, well, that helps New Japan be a little bit more competitive when it comes, for talent. Maybe it doesn't hemorrhage talent as much as it has lately. Maybe they're able to bring in some people. At the same time, he's kind of there and he's around the New Japan books. And if things don't turn around, they do have a guy. So I think it's more. I think it's more along the lines of trying to get the tide lifting all ships more than take Taro Okada away from Stardom just as it's starting to catch fire, or not catch, it didn't start to catch fire, as it is on fire as a company, and move him over to New Japan and screw over Stardom. I don't think that's what Bushiroad's trying to do, but I do think they want to take some of what he does well and bring it across the hall to New Japan. That's my thought on this as I've looked over this whole Taro Okada situation. But they want Tanahashi to succeed, surely.
Would you call this a job promotion for him?
No, I think it's more of just an expansion of a role he already has.
So he's not getting more responsibility is not a promotion.
Not necessarily, is it? Not necessarily.
Like, in the Japanese culture, I just kind of thought, if like he's given more responsibility, that's considered a promotion over there. And so
they could term it that way, but that's semantics. I mean, the whole thing is he still has his primary job running Stardom day to day. His roles in terms of sponsorship and marketing have expanded over to the men's side as well as the women's side, just because he did such a great job on the women's side. It makes sense in that sense.
Yeah, I think it starts small within the company, within that division, but I don't know. It does seem like, to me, we're going to start hearing that name more and more and more. And it would not shock me if, in 3, 4, 5 years, we're talking about how this guy came over from Stardom and is now running New Japan.
It could. I mean, here's the thing.
Yeah, like that's how I just kind of like, like you don't see these news bulletins from New Japan or Bushiroad where they're like announcing these people coming in and doing certain jobs. So this does feel a little bit out of the norm.
Okay, that's fair. That's a fair point. They don't normally announce things like that in publicly the way they did this one. That is true. You know what it reminds me of a little bit? It's not apples to apples. So it's not apples to apples. Do you remember when NXT really took off and it was the best show? It was the best wrestling show. And Ryan Ward was the main guy on it. And Ryan Ward was the main creative, right? With Paul running NXT, Vince was still with Raw and SmackDown and the main roster, so to speak. But you had Triple H, who was the biggest babyface in front office history. Like, every time we saw Triple H, I went nuts for him, because he was giving WWE fans this sort of, indie promotion style wrestling show where we had, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens and, Adam Cole.
WWE's Ring of Honor.
Okay. Yes. Or PWG or however you want to say. And Ryan Ward was the guy writing the show. It was a 1-hour show. It was the best show that WWE had. And then they brought him up and they put him on SmackDown because it's a promotion, like we're going to bring you up to the main roster. You don't hear Ryan Ward at all anymore. But back then he was Booker of the Year, in the Observer Awards. And people were talking about this is a rising star in the wrestling industry. And they brought him up to SmackDown and, you get into that machine and you can get lost in the gears in there because that machine is just so monstrous.
There to prop up the 5 people they choose.
Yeah,
represent the story and the company and Triple H and Shawn Michaels now. Triple H and Shawn Michaels. If there's a booking decision, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, or John Cena making decisions for himself, but typically Triple H and Shawn Michaels,
or The Rock making decisions for nobody except himself.
But yeah, there's a pivot there where the machine directs you to a certain person. I don't, it's like. I never heard the name Jennifer Pepperman before she came to AEW. And for a while there, it was like anything that you wanted to scrutinize about the women's division. You just pointed at Jen Pepperman and said, see, it's her. She came from WWE and she's putting it on AEW and this is WWE crap. It was just one of those, like, you identify somebody and you like lock in that whatever your issue is, it is clearly this one person and this one person alone in the wrestling industry that just kind of becomes your focal point. And I see that with like names like Ryan Ward, where it's like, sure, he was like a name, a person, but he wasn't strong enough to sustain that level of scrutiny. And instead it just became somebody else who they pointed out and said, hey, this is the reason we don't like this one product, or this is the reason this one wrestler is really thriving. Yeah, and this one person got behind them, not the myriad of reasons that somebody takes off in the wrestling industry.
Yeah, and I didn't say anything about that to knock on Ryan Ward or to insult him at all. I think he did a great job.
It's just a great example of somebody that you heard of and now you don't hear of anymore.
Yeah, and what I mean with like Okada did a terrific job righting the ship of Stardom and then guiding it through. But there are challenges ahead, right? Kamitani took off, right? But you can only retire Tam Nakano that effectively. Anything else is going to be derivative after that. Even if she came back, you can't do it again. It'll never be the same, right? Even if she did come back. So there are certain things like, is he going to be able to sustain all that? And so he's had a terrific run in Stardom. There's no doubt. And I don't blame them for wanting, this guy's got the hot hand. Let's bring him over, especially in terms of marketing and sponsorships. New Japan needs money. That's one of the main reasons they're losing these guys. They need money. And so, yes, increasing ticket sales, better booking will increase ticket sales. Yes, no question about that. And that they haven't had. But if they have a direction that the company says, okay, Tana, we believe in you, we'll believe in you. We'll let your stories play out. At the same time, this guy's done wonders as far as selling merchandise. This guy's done a terrific job as far as getting some really good logos on the mat and on the turnbuckles and some other deals going. We're going to bring him over and help out a little bit, because if the revenue comes up on the New Japan side on that end as well, then that's the kind of stuff that might be the difference between a key guy leaving for North America and staying, especially the domestic talent who might not want to go overseas and live in a foreign country for years at a time, but sometimes just can't turn down that paper. And maybe they'll be able to be a little bit more competitive with those guys going forward, or bring in good foreign talent. All of it helps. And that's what I think Okada's there to do. Now, if New Japan continues to struggle in 2026, the way it had in the end of 2025, a year from now, if Wrestle Kingdom does 25,000 people, down from 45,000 because you don't have a Tanahashi retirement on top, then I think, then people need to start looking over their shoulders a little bit. That's all I'm saying on that, especially if Stardom stays hot. Then you got to start looking over things. And there's a lot of options after that. But it's one of those deals then where, I feel confident. I don't know this, but I feel confident that they wanted to work with Tanahashi and are going to give him every opportunity. He has to play himself out of the job. I don't think he has to prove to them that he should be president. I think he has to prove to them he shouldn't be. And that would mean,
look at it.
2 years of really bad results. Then they might start thinking maybe he's not the guy, but I think they're going to be very patient.
This is the analysis that I wanted from you on this.
Whew. Took a long time getting there, folks. Sorry, that was a big rant. But
I texted Steven and he gave me I think this was on Monday or Tuesday when the news came out, and I said, "Hey, what are your thoughts on this?" And he sent a couple of polite da da da, and then all of a sudden I asked him one more question. A stream of responses all the way through, and I was like, "There it is." Hey, let's talk about it.
And we don't normally do that. We try to keep it fresh for the show, but I had thoughts.
Yeah, no, I just kind of poked and prodded, and I actually didn't respond. I just thumbs up at that.
Yeah.
That's how I knew. Engaging. I just wanted to get your mind rolling on it.
That's how I knew I should shut up. He doesn't want to hear all that. All right. So then Brad just says, I think Tana's spot is about as safe as anyone can be. They'd get such pushback if they got rid of him as president. And that's the other side, Jeremy. You push him out of a job. If it ever happens, I think he would be pressured to resign just so it doesn't look like that. Because my goodness, firing Tanahashi would be
an ambassador or a fountainhead or an an honored status, emeritus, just somebody. Well, there's too much cachet with Tanahashi being associated with the product that if he's not actually running it, he'll still be a part of it. That's the reality of it.
But it just goes to show that 2026 is a critical year. This could be where either it turns around and, we are indeed back, which I don't think we're going to know until maybe the G1, maybe even past that, if we're actually back or not. It takes time to build this stuff. And if not, then I think we could be looking at, by necessity, some house cleaning in a year or so, because they can't keep going like this. They just can't. And so something's going to happen this year. So in 2026, something's going to happen. I'm rooting for the comeback, but as always, in the typical babyface fashion, I root for the comeback. But if we're still having this conversation next year and we're seeing record low attendances, I can't justify keeping the same people in charge anymore. I mean, how? What I mean? It's like it's going to be it's a big year for Hiroshi Tanahashi. That's all I'm saying.
It is
a big year.
You build it around one guy, like I've been saying. It's like you just need to have one person that they're building around. When we talked with Dave, he said, we asked him, how do they move forward? It's like you make one guy and then you have two guys underneath him, and you have them chasing and you have him there. And right now it feels like you have Yota Tsuji and you got Yuya and Shota kind of chasing. That's a good start to this whole generational new. What do you got?
No, notice one other thing about that though is you have 3 baby faces at the moment, and that don't work. Somebody needs to move around.
I keep thinking Shota's going heel. I don't know. It feels
like it. It's an interesting thing too, because they teased Uemura with the whole not kneeling on the lion mark with Tanahashi and Shota. Like he had a little bit of resentment right there, but there's been nothing like that since that moment. That moment was it. There hasn't been even a hint of anything else. So that might have been done just to misdirect you that, it's going to be Uemura, and then it actually is Shota, because Shota almost seemed too obvious for a while. They had to plant a little bit of doubt as to which one might turn, but I don't know. One of those guys needs to turn heel and win the New Japan Cup, because that New Japan Cup should not be about baby faces.
I'm not sure if they should turn heel and win the New Japan Cup or turn heel because they didn't win the New Japan Cup.
Okay. All right. New Japan Cup's a place for turns. Sonata did it. That was
absolutely. It was the Bullet Club du jour for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Last year it was basically the David Finlay Get Your Flowers tournament, where it's like that was basically his big accomplishment, and then more or less have been downcycled ever since. You know what I mean? Like he got a title shot with Goto, but he hasn't been in the world title picture since, and now he's a few guys below the rung in his own faction. So, the New Japan Cup is where things happen and you get kind of a sense of the year. And right now it feels like New Japan Cup really needs to help define some of these factions. Because right now, United Empire is getting a lot of love and attention. But that's going to be interesting how it goes after New Beginnings, all the New Beginning shows. Then you still have to figure out what's going on with House of Torture. Is Ren Narita really going to be the guy? Unbound Company appears to have, more or less the bones of whatever it's going to be is there. TMDK, the bones of whatever it's going to be is there. And then Hontai, which is just this big sprawling mess that frankly needs to split up into a couple of different things, and people need to, get out there because there's too many mouths to feed at the top. With Shota and Yuya both there, one of those people needs to kind of go to another faction, create a new faction, or lead one of these other factions, because, when we get to the G1 and you pick those 6 guys that we're talking about that are going to go into the finals, it's probably going to be like Yoda. It'll be Zach. It'll be Jake Lee, Yoda, Yuya, Shota, and then maybe somebody else, like an X Factor guy. But those are the people that we're talking about. That's who this year is going to be built around. Jake Lee may not be successful this time around, but I'm pretty confident he's going to be viable through the entire year and going to be considered a threat to that title all year round. He's going to be in the G1 post-block play. Like, these are things in my mind that are already just like, put it on.
And Callum Newman's going to be a factor going forward, too.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And then Turin Tarambar says, Shota taking over House of Torture would be interesting. And the USVA guy, Esteban, says, there's one person you got to keep an eye on, HOT forever. Jeremy Orr is asking, why no TV deal to help promote in Japan? Well, they have TV shows in Japan. They have, I think, 3. They have a show that is basically cobbled together matches from the shows that we see on NJPW World. That's why one of the reasons they have the Japanese announced teams there. Those are, I believe it's just edited together shows from the same touring programs we see. There's another one that's I think on television that's more of a talk show, and I'm not totally sure off the top of my head. I used to know this exactly. One's on TV Asahi. TV Asahi is the one that I'm talking about, the 1 hour show a week that is highlights of in-ring action. What they don't have is a SmackDown or a Raw that, this week they're in Osaka, this week they're in Tokyo. Here we're coming live from Niigata. They don't do that. With the set and the traveling show with the promos and all that kind of stuff. That's something that New Japan doesn't do. They have TV. Where I mean the culture is different is that they're not getting hundreds of millions of dollars in rights fees. The audience isn't there, and Japanese television culture just doesn't do that. That's just not how it goes there. And they're just not in a position right now to demand that either. So while they have the TV shows to promote the shows, and they do, they promote their touring programs on those shows and try to show you the highlights of, and then make sure you come and see them when they visit your town. They do all that. But what they don't get is, like WWE, these guys don't have to run house shows. AEW doesn't run house shows. WWE really doesn't run house shows. Sometimes they'll do a live event, but those are kind of few and far between now. They are essentially a television show that is done in front of a live studio audience. It's just the studio audience is in an arena every week. WWE and AEW are essentially television shows that have wrestling. They're not a touring wrestling company with a TV show, if that makes any sense. Their main job is to supply these networks with programming.
The easiest way that I can look at it, and
World of Pro Wrestling. Thank you, Esteban. World of Pro Wrestling. That's the name of it. Yeah.
The easiest thing that I can compare it to is it's like a franchise like league schedule where the NFL or the NBA or the Major League Baseball or even baseball in Japan. Every week, different nights of the week, you're going to have a game. It's not the same from week to week, depending on like getting to a town, what arena it's at. They have a home base of Korakuen Hall, but that's how I look at it. Is that it's like a sports league where every day of the week you might have a show or not, just depending on the way the league works out. And it's easy for me to just compartmentalize it like that. Whereas the shows here in the States, like, every Monday, every Friday, every Wednesday, you're going to get your TV shows for wrestling. And then on the weekends, every so often, you get a special show.
Yeah. And not every company in Japan has a television show at all. So New Japan is ahead of the game on that. It's one of the reasons they're number one and have been for a very, very long time. So they have that. It's just what they don't have is a source of income that they can live on from it. It's just not the way Japanese television is with rights fees. The way, I mean, geez, if WWE doesn't even need to do those PLEs, like they could don't want to, could subside on their contracts with Universal for SmackDown and Netflix for Raw and live quite happily. But when you can get Saudi blood money, you take that too. That's their philosophy and all that. But that's just different business systems, just business structures than between the two cultures. So, yeah. Okay. So we've talked about some of the business end of it. We've talked about Evil's departure. No other official departures this week. Well, we'll keep an eye because more are rumored to be happening.
Been quiet, honestly. I feel like we're not going to get any real news until after New Beginnings, when you get some of the outcomes of some of these matches, and then all of a sudden we have we wish so a great happy time moving forward, or a dual contract or whatever. Just we don't have any. There's no reason to announce any of this stuff. Evil, you knew he was leaving. Could he show up at the Rumble? Maybe. I doubt it. It doesn't feel like anyone is going to know who he is if he shows up as number 17 in the Saudi Mania Rumble. Whereas if you build up that debut on TV over the course of some time, you might actually get somewhere with that. I don't know. It feels weird to debut that guy there. It doesn't work
I'm curious to see what they do with him, though. Brad mentions that Clark Connors is working Collision on Saturday.
Yeah, you don't say.
Yeah, he is.
Shocking.
But still, no official announcement, right? So we'll talk about all that when it happens. By the way, I wanted to mention this. We've been talking about things like creative and people who are involved with creative. Power Bombshells, our sibling show, did an interview about I guess it's almost 3 weeks ago. So I apologize I haven't mentioned it earlier, with Michael Leonardi, who's former member of the WWE creative. And go check that out, by the way, on the Fight Game Media YouTube feed. Check out Power Bombshells anyway. They're on every Sunday, 1:00 p.m. Eastern. You should watch that anyhow. But
they get the most viewership of any show on our network.
Yeah,
good for them.
And Sam did a heck of a job getting that interview together. She does. She has other interviews going, so I would definitely recommend that one. By the way, enjoyed.
Also, if you're looking for written content, you can hire her. She used to work for Daily DDT, and they longer provided written content. She is excellent at the written word, articles, actual substantive content when it comes to the world of pro wrestling.
And Jeremy said he heard our Vader podcast, so I'm glad that's getting out there. The one we did on Vader and Inoki. So cool. Yeah, I'm very grateful for that. So there were a couple of shows this week. Like I said, nothing on NJPW World. These were house shows. And Iwate,
I heard one of these was a disaster, like the snowstorm, just messed everything up.
Aomori on Wednesday happened, and there were issues with transportation and the guys getting to the building, to the point that after the main event, Tsuji was in the ring doing the post-match promo and said, "Oh, by the way, the other bus actually got here, so we have 2 more matches for you tonight." When it didn't, and I guess some guys didn't have their luggage and were working in either other people's gear and warm-up gear, and it was a bit of a slapdash issue there in Aomori on Wednesday, but it still drew almost 1,000 people. I think it was more getting into the town than once they were in the town, because the people in Aomori were able to make it out anyway, thankfully. But
I guess Shota Umino wrestled in black gear because all of his gear was on the other bus, so he had nothing to work with. Sometimes
it's those. I guess here they would be called county roads, Jeremy, but I don't know what they're called in Japan. But some of those roads between the cities can be a little treacherous. So that's what they have.
They have photos from the show.
Mm-hmm.
He's got his boots and he's got his knee pads, but he's wearing like lion mark, like elastic band pants.
It's possible that came from the merch table.
Yeah, it's entirely possible that it came from the merch table. And he's got a white hoodie on, and he's just going for it. That's amazing.
Man's doing what he can do. So,
it's the 2026 Lion Mark suit that he's wearing. He's wearing the pants with the white stripe on it.
Got it. Okay. So that was Aomori on Wednesday. Iwate Thursday. That was earlier today here, but both drew about 1,000 people. Iwate was part of the Road to New Beginning tour last year and drew almost the same number of people. So I think they found the audience out there in Iwate. They show up in about the same numbers no matter what. But all preview tag stuff. Nothing really to speak of on that. And then February 1st, though, the next time we're going to see everybody, 1st and 2nd in Korakuen Hall. That's when they will be back on NJPW World. They'll be back on Tokyo. And then on February 1st, the lineup is this. Mostly preview tags with a couple of exceptions. We will have Shomakato versus Katsuya Murashima in the New Lion Cup final. I mentioned a few more preview tags. And then 2 tag matches will end the night, previewing feuds that are going to be on New Beginnings. So we will have Hiromu and Finlay against Newman and Jacob Austin Young. So Hiromu Takahashi, David Finlay against Newman and Young. That, of course, is the lead up to Newman versus Finlay. And then we will see Tsuji and Taiji Ishimori against Francesco Akira and Jake Lee. So we're going to get Hiromu and Ishimori as a team, one of my dream tag teams. I'm glad we're getting, if, and it's still an if, Hiromu leaves, I'm glad I at least get to see this once, Jeremy. Hiromu and Ishimori against Akira and Young. Finlay versus Newman, Tsuji versus Lee. And so these 2 tag matches are kind of jumbling all those guys up and giving us a preview.
I'm really excited for these two nights of cards. I'm really looking forward to the second, but for the most part, I think that the build that they've been doing for this New Beginnings show has been really strong. Like they've put Jake Lee and Yota Tsuji in this position where, a lot of people weren't really all that interested in Jake Lee going into this feud, but I think that they've managed to spin something that people at least have an eyebrow raise and say, hey, you know what? This isn't the same Jake Lee that I thought he was.
Okay. Well, there you have it. And I'm looking at this because Esteban mentioned. So Aomori and then Iwate. These are indeed snowy areas. So this is in the very north part of the primary island of Honshu there. So that's the same island that has Tokyo, Nagoya, Osaka, even Sendai up there, but it's up north of all that. Now, Hokkaido and Sapporo, of course, that area, that's the northern island. I found this out, Jeremy. Some places on that island has some of the highest snowfall totals on the face of the earth, among the highest per year. Sometimes the highest per year, up in very north island of Japan. That's not where they were, but they were on the north end of Honshu, which is ambitious for this time of year and can be treacherous. Esteban mentioned that Morioka is a very snowy area, hard to get around sometimes. I had an issue getting around during World Tag League final in 2018. So apparently he was snowed in a little bit in those spots. It can definitely happen because, they had the Winter Olympics well south of that. So this is even further north on an island during the winter time. So plenty of snow. And then here's one from Brad. He says, I'm still not totally into Jake, but he gives a bit of a Naito feel in his new role, and I'm warming up to him. The United Empire Jake, we've only seen hints of him a little bit, feels a little more, it feels like he's more comfortable in the role than the War Dog version of Jake Lee, or the Bullet Club version of Jake Lee, the one that got hurt. This version of him, this kind of smirking kind of I'm just in your head taunting you type of, the Callum Newman being that kind of the malice that's within Callum Newman and the anger within him, and Jake's kind of cool, I'm just going to mess with your head every day type of thing, fits this faction to me a little bit better than when he was in there with David Finlay and the rest of them. I feel like this might be a more natural fit for him, Jeremy, so far, early returns. But
I saw somewhere, I think a backstage comment or something, where he called himself a jester to the court, to the king's court, whereas like he doesn't consider himself the king, but he's more like the man speaking truth through humor. That kind of through the whimsy, and I can see that with what he's doing, and that still kind of protects Callum Newman as being the king in United Empire, or the prince to be king, that kind of thing. There's a little bit of riddle to that whole mentality, but I do like what Jake is doing. I like what United Empire is doing, and it also kind of makes me think, reality is, after seeing AEW last night and seeing what, New Japan seems to have planned with Andrade, I think he's going to be here in fits and starts, and maybe similar to the Takeshita thing. But I think if he's not actively in the world title picture, that can work fine until you want to do potentially a feud at the G1 or something where he has an opportunity after he's wrestled in there. But, these dual contracts, all of these things, United Empire, all this stuff, I don't think it's going to work the way that we want it to. And I'm not sure that it will be sustainable. So I think focusing on Jake Lee, I think focusing on Callum Newman, I think those are the right plays in that faction.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. And I think the results, the pinfall results of this match matter a lot less than what happens after it. Whoever wins, whoever loses, I would recommend two things. One, Yota Tsuji does not take a pin, even in a tag match. I just don't beat the guy right now, Jeremy. I think
Yota Tsuji shouldn't be taking any kind of pinfall for like 3 months.
Yeah, and at the same time, I think Lee should stand tall. So whether that means he gets in a cheap one after and hits the big boot in the corner to Tsuji and knocks him out, I just feel like there's work to do in getting Lee to that spot of looking like a real threat. And that's probably what we're going to see. I would recommend doing that anyway, but don't pin Tsuji. That would be my thought on it. All right. February 2nd, more preview tags in Korakuen Hall. I'm curious to see attendance on this one, these shows. Preview tags plus a 3-match series of singles matches at the end of the card that pits TMDK versus, I guess, the Godo Revolutionary Army in some ways. So we will see first, and the order will, I think, kind of tell you how this is going to go. Bolton, Oleg Bolton against Hartley Jackson in the first one. The second one, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Yoshihashi. And then the third main event, February 2nd, in Korakuen Hall, Hiroki Goto versus Ryohei Oiwa. They don't have to do it this way, Jeremy, but boy, that feels like it'll be 1-1 going into that main event, doesn't it?
Oh, it absolutely does. And not only do I think this match will be consequential, I wouldn't be shocked if they run this match back in the New Japan Cup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, like they did the same thing with Shingo and Giroa last year, where they had one of these special singles matches, and then one of those matches that they had like right afterwards was like second round of the New Japan Cup. And, you know, if it were me, Steven, Oiwa goes over.
Yeah, I think it might be healthy to do so, but again, there's if this is chapter 1 or chapter 3 of a story, really, because these teams have been at it. They were the last two involved in that mess of a trios gauntlet match at Wrestle Kingdom that's better left undiscussed. But then they had a title match that was pretty good for those trios titles, and that was won by Bishamon and Bolton. So these teams have been kind of clashing all month long. And I think you're right. I think this is going to go further into the cup. And then if they want to, they can take whatever happens in the cup and have it be part of those two being in the same block in the G1. Like this could roll on and on for a while. So I feel like we are only in the middle of this story, not coming to the end of it.
If it wasn't for the promo that Oiwa did in the middle of the ring, where he basically said, Goto, if you and I get another shot one-on-one, I can beat you. You know, it's like either that's a declaration that he fails and then eventually he overcomes that mountain at some point, either the G1 or something like that, or you are really serious and putting these guys on the map early on in the year. Based off of everything, I lean towards, you know, not pulling that trigger and them doing the G1 thing, but my heart really wants them to just go, you know what, Oiwa, we believe in you and we're going to give you this win.
Yeah, it's also possible they just want a feel good win with Goto at the end. Yeah, Korakuen Hall on the microphone. It could very well be. Yeah, it could very well be. Yeah, it's been a struggle in Korakuen lately for the company. So I'm curious to see how many people show up for these, because they haven't put a lot into these matches.
There's 100% a lot of intrigue with this match and this match alone. Like, you could go either way.
I don't know.
Like,
I'm interested.
Wisdom is Goto winning because he's a former world champion, and beating a former world champion in a singles match has to mean something. Is this big enough to mean something in 2026 New Japan is really the question. Are these singles matches going to be consequential? Are they telling a story? Or are we going to be in a situation of, yes, yet again, these young guys are close, but not close enough?
I'll ask you this. Last time they ran 2 nights in Korakuen, they had the embarrassing 1,009 number and then about 1,200 that showed up for the 2 title matches on the junior heavyweight side. Looking at these cards, now one's on Sunday and one's on Monday, which is not to be discounted either. If I put the over-under at 1,100, which way are you going to take?
On each card?
Yeah.
Under.
Yeah, I think so too. That's a lot of empty seats.
It is, but I'm not worried about it because we just had this conversation last week that it's going to take time for the New Japan fans to realize that this is a different product. You have to stay the course.
If it is. We haven't seen the
it's like they don't have any option but being a new product. Like that to me is the realistic mentality, is that this company does not have any old stars to rely on. This company cannot live off the fumes of 2008 to 2020 anymore. Like they are they're fucking boned if they don't go with these guys.
Well, I agree with you. I'm just saying that there's not a lot. We haven't seen firm evidence that they're aware of that.
But we also haven't had the first real big show of the year since Wrestle Kingdom. That's coming up in 2 weeks. Which, by the way, I meant to ask you, and I'm not going to put you on the spot here now. Do you want to do the New Beginning show recap on Wednesday on the 11th, or do you want to wait today and do the normal?
Let's stick to our regular schedule.
Okay,
we'll just keep it nice and consistent because that show's on a Wednesday and then we come in on Thursday.
Sure, I just didn't know what you wanted to do. So
I would want to do it if it were a weekend thing, but the February 11th is a national holiday in Japan. By the way, in case you're wondering why on earth this big card is stuck in the middle of the week, it is a national holiday, February 11th. We'll talk more about that as we get to it because we're going to preview that one next week and talk a little bit about the holiday itself and all that. So we'll get into it, but that's why it's in the middle of the week. Normally something like that would be on a Saturday or a Sunday, but no, this year we're on a Wednesday because of the holiday. So there's one more show next week that is not on NJPW World as it stands right now, the house show in Fukushima. It's not, like I said, not scheduled to air, and it's made up of preview tags. There's really, it's a house show. It is a house show.
Yay, house shows. I don't have anything else, really. My dog's losing his mind because apparently I haven't given him enough treats through the entirety of the day. You got anything else for us today, Steven?
No, and I'm scanning to see if we missed any questions here, but I don't think we did. I think I got to everything that was asked live here in the chat. So I want to thank Brad, certainly, Nick Reeves was here today, Jeremy Orr, USVA guy, all you guys. Thanks for chatting with us and giving us some things to talk about as we went on with this week. The evil thing is an interesting situation, and it leaves a gap atop one of the mainstay factions in the company. So got to think there's some repercussions coming from that, not necessarily immediately, because we mentioned New Beginning. They're not really booked. Then Fantasticomania, they don't really need them. It's not really until the New Japan Cup or after that something needs to really take place with all those guys. And it's the other thing, Brad. He mentions that the U.S. show is on sale on the site, $19 to watch New Beginning USA. Well,
I'll probably watch it. I will
too. I will too. The company needs the money, for God's sake.
Oh wow! I was just going to watch because I was kind of into the card in general. But
they haven't really announced the card yet, though, have they?
They got matches that actually have me interested, which is Bolton Oleg versus Tomohiro Ishii and El Fantasmo versus Takeshita, which if you're going to advertise two matches, I'm here for those. Those are totally cromulent matches, as Josh Hawkins would say, as I were. The only other thing that I wanted to say before we get out of here is we talk about the unknown and the mystery of New Japan, going into 2026. But the fact of the matter is, Evil left. Evil's gone, and that means there's a spot to fill to somebody to step up and take that role and really redefine that and leave their mark on it. And if anything, I hope somebody does.
Absolutely, and there are likely to be other roles and other gaps to be filled in as this year goes on. And there's a lot of rumors going around. Again, no official announcements, but boy, there's a lot of smoke. And even if it's not all of the people that are being rumored, it would be strange if none of the others left. That many people rumored to be leaving and none of them left. That would be a surprise as well. So I have a feeling we're going to be having conversations like this again. So
yeah. I don't know, Steven, next week, are we going to be going oi, 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 or go, go, go?
Well, we will be talking about these two Korakuen Hall shows that are coming up this weekend. We will have our full-blown preview of the New Beginning in Osaka, which should be an intriguing card indeed. And we will go over it match by match and talk about any other news that comes up.
Yes, we will. I don't have anything else. Everybody, Thank you for letting us off the hook 10 minutes early. We're usually 10 minutes or 15 minutes over. So I like this time coming back to me just a little bit.
All right. So for Jeremy Finestone, I'm Steven Conway. This has been Speaking of Strong Style. Thank you for your time, whether you've joined us here live on YouTube or as a podcast later. We're very grateful, and we will talk to you again real soon.